good evening, this is Houndog Steve, wishing you a very pleasant evening. And, I'd like to read you a letter that I wrote to the editor just recently, actually earlier this week, and it was printed. At such short notice, I was absolutely stunned. But it was in response to a doctor who had written a letter in the previous issue begging and imploring the editor to not print any more anti-inoculation letters. And this is my response. Corporations are not trustworthy. Dear editor, in responding to Robert Wagman, I find it so frustrating when issues get mixed into one argument or labelled as anti-inoculation to end the discussion. In truth, it is more complex than that. First, let me say that I'm not an anti-inoculation person. I've had my polio, TB, cholera, tetanus, smallpox and yellow fever injections without issue or concern. If Dr. Wagman was from my generation, he would remember thalidomide, DDT, asbestos, radium, arsenic, tobacco, OxyContin, BBTEs, fire retardants, synthetic estrogen, 2,4-D, neonicotinoids. All of these things were deemed safe for use by all of the regulatory bodies of government and, of course, the manufacturers. Thalidomide was even given out for free. He would remember how tobacco companies dragged out compensation cases for years. The last thalidomide cases in Canada were resolved in 2010, 50 years after the fact, and when many of the victims were dead. When pharmaceutical corporations are indemnified from prosecution on an experimental vaccine, mRNA, and is still on trial till May of 2023, there is reason for concern. What product with as yet unknown outcomes gets that kind of soft touch? It is not anti-inoculation to have a healthy suspicion of these corporations who have a revolving door relationship with regulatory bodies who have been proven to openly lie about product safety to increase sales. Please remember, most of us started out trusting these corporations. It is these corporations who have relentlessly proved to us by their behavior that they are not trustworthy. And I'm using that as a preface to a little story that I'm about to read, and it's Johnson & Johnson, of course, and they are one of the manufacturers of the inoculation, and it is their response to being sued for having asbestos in their baby talc. Now you think about that for a second. Asbestos is a known carcinogen, and it was given to babies. We all know how freely women use talc on their bodies, and of course I believe that was the initial case, was the cervical cancer, and they proved a connection between the asbestos and the cancer. And so what did Johnson & Johnson do? Well, let me read you the story and I'll come back and do a quick wrap up. Here we go. So this article is from NPR. J&J is using a bankruptcy maneuver to block lawsuits over baby powder cancer claims, and this is October 21st, 2021. Johnson & Johnson is drawing criticism after using a controversial bankruptcy maneuver to block roughly 38,000 lawsuits linked to claims that its talc baby powder was contaminated with cancer-causing asbestos. The health products giant used a quirk of Texas state law to spin off a new company called LTL, then dumped all its asbestos-related liabilities, including the avalanche of lawsuits, into the new firm. LTL filed for bankruptcy last week in a federal court in Charlotte, North Carolina, a move designed to sharply limit efforts to recover damages for those who say they were harmed by J&J's baby powder. Johnson & Johnson doesn't have this liability anymore. They pushed it all into the company they created just to file for bankruptcy, said Lindsay Simon, a bankruptcy expert at the University of Georgia School of Law. As a result, Simon said consumers can't recover damages against a big solvent company. They have to recover against a smaller, fictional company created by J&J. The move sparked outrage from lawmakers and consumer advocates. J&J knew asbestos laced some bottles but kept it secret for decades, Representative Katie Porter, Democrat California, tweeted on Tuesday. Tens of thousands of women with ovarian cancer are suing, and the company wants to shield its assets. In 2018, separate investigations by Reuters and the New York Times revealed documents showing Johnson & Johnson fretted for decades that small amounts of asbestos lurked in its baby powder without telling regulators. Johnson & Johnson has repeatedly denied the claim. The company remains one of the wealthiest corporations in the world with more than $25 billion in cash reserves and has not filed for bankruptcy. Johnson & Johnson says the bankruptcy move is legitimate, and this may be the case. But is it right? During a call with investors on Tuesday, J&J CFO Joseph Wolk defended the bankruptcy maneuver and again said its talc baby powder products, discontinued last year, were safe. Well, why did you discontinue them? You know, these people are so transparent, aren't they? There's an established process that allows companies facing abusive tort systems to resolve claims in an efficient and equitable manner, Wolk said. It's really the bankruptcy courts that will ultimately decide this. It's not plaintiff attorneys. It's not Johnson & Johnson, he added. There you go. Complete denial of responsibility. And these corporations are ruling your life. These same corporations like Google and YouTube and Twitter are all doing the same thing. They are walking back from responsibility whilst forcing you to put up with the consequences of their actions. This is absolutely untenable, and you trust them? So now if anyone thinks that Johnson & Johnson is this shining, clean, white knight looking out for your best interests, this is baby talc. This is baby powder. The most vulnerable people, in our society on this planet is our children and our young people. And for them to duck out of paying compensation by a slimy legal trick. And you trust these people? You trust these people? You've got to be kidding me. If you trust these people, really, you've got to screw loose, and you have not been living in the real world for the last several decades. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm afraid it is true. Take a look. Do your own research. Go onto Wikipedia, type in a search for Pfizer or Moderna or Johnson & Johnson legal issues, and you will be staggered at the way these people have treated their responsibility when they promised faithfully that there was no risk to using their products. And now they've been indemnified? Are you kidding me? Think on, my friends. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. You take care now. See ya. Bye.